The Temple of Amun-Re at Karnak is the sort of prototypical Egyptian temple of the period. This is a temple that is going to be built up over hundreds of years, each pharaoh giving more and more money, more and more resources to it because of its importance to their religion. And when we look at it, it is a remarkable structure. We have these massive courtyards and hypostyle halls. We have different chambers built out. You get the idea of something that has grown organically over time. And you'll notice that true north, down in the lower right there, is not quite north here. North here is based on the movements of the sun, which aren't quite exactly true magnetic north, but at the same time, it gets across that idea of the east and the west, the north and the south. And you'll notice you enter the west and you are always facing east as you move through the temple. That's important because we have that solar element of the religion. So everything faces east because the east is the great coming of the sun moving across the sky. So you always want to face that direction. In fact, we see churches doing the same thing today. Here's a rough reconstruction of what it may have looked like. This is a temple in which to honor the god Amun-Re, a solar deity, and it's a site of worship for hundreds of years. It's a pylon temple, meaning a temple with sloped walls and gateways. The walls and gateways aren't there to prevent invasion, but rather to give you a sense of moving from the profane, the outside world, to the sacred, this world of the temple. And it has quite an elaborate facade, which would have been carved as well as painted, so everything would have stood out. And only the pharaohs and priests would have entered into the inner sanctuary. What we're looking at, though, is the hypostyle hall. Now, the hypostyle hall is this massive hall full of stone columns, and these are built stone columns. You can see the drums of the stone as they go up. It has been partially reconstructed, as we can see. And one of the interesting things is the two central columns actually are raised above the rest. Why? Because it creates windows, which you see here from the side, but here you get a sense of what's going on. So these would let light into an otherwise very dark structure. Whoops, don't do that. And that light would have been near miraculous to the Egyptians, since most Egyptians lived in homes with minimal openings. You don't have much in the way of windows. Obviously, they have doors. They frequently will dine and do things on the roof because that's the coolest place in the house. But it would have been a fairly dark existence indoors. And so to see all of this extra light come in would be nearly miraculous to them, as if somehow it is a depiction of the power of the gods to see this much light in an enclosed space. So we see massive columns being used to support the roof, made up of stone joists and stone slabs that were laid over the top. So here again, we get that sense of what this structure would have looked like. All of the columns are carved with sunken relief. And that sunken relief is, again, a change. We saw this in Hatshepsut's mortuary temple. We've seen it elsewhere. It's easier. Arguably, it looks better. It is definitely less costly because now I'm not cutting away all the material of that column, leaving a few areas proud. Rather, I'm cutting away the excess material only for the figure or hieroglyph which I'm carving. And they use very tight joints and the sheer weight of compression to hold the stones in place, basically ashlar masonry. And they've done this before. This is how they're building the pyramids and other structures. Stone is really strong under compression, but it's really weak when you start trying to bend it or pull on it, which is tensile strength and shear strength. So the columns are massive, and there's a lot of them because the stone ceiling would need an immense amount of support. But it does give us an idea of the importance of religiosity in ancient Egypt.